I'd like to thank the Process Art Discovery audience for joining me here today. I'm Lynda Norman. I'm a watercolor artist in the beautiful province of British Columbia. Today we'll be working with a hockey brush on some beautiful Magnani 100% cotton paper. Painting with big brushes is a beautiful way to stay loose, work with big shapes, get that intuitive flow of the water and the pigment happening. I often paint an entire painting with just a hockey brush, or sometimes I will incorporate some of the other larger brushes that I use. And as always, I have my trusty Eco palette from Watercolor Online. Palettes large enough to accommodate my large brushes. And yeah, we're going to get started in a moment. I can't go another second without telling you how excited I am about my new collection of Lebanon's and brushes. And oh, we have some beautiful, beautiful silver fox, a pony hare, a Siberian elk, another Siberian elk. This is a medium, and this is on a wangi handle. The wangi is a different kind of material. All so light and so beautiful in your hand. This one's a little bit longer in the handle. Look at the point on those, and they haven't even wetted or cleaned or woken up yet. And this is a Siberian hare brush. And last but not least, we have a small Siberian elk. Siberian elk, I just want to wetted, look at that. It's like a precision instrument. So I will wake them up, and in an upcoming video we will work with those. I'll show you how they work. Maybe we'll even get Tracy Lebanon's, the clever manufacturer of these brushes, on hand to walk us through some of the qualities and properties of these brushes. So I feel like I've been gifted an amazing treasure to have those in my studio now. So let's get going on with the hockey brush. And the one I'm using today is a Ron Ronson made by Pro Art. I don't even know if they're still available. If you can't find one online, it's Ron Ronson Pro Art puts them out. Ron was a brilliant watercolor artist who specialized in using the hockey brush. And just, you know, more proof that you don't need to be indicating fine in details to get your message across and create a beautiful painting. There's other brands available in any art or craft store probably in your area. They're goat hair, they're soft, they're supple, they're stitched in to the handle. You can see that little stitching there. The Ron Ronson is just a bit, I find it a bit thicker and just a little bit stiffer. These are quite soft, and they actually are probably 1/8 of an inch longer, which maybe has something to do with that. But they all hold a ton of water. They come in all kinds of sizes, so you can paint big loose washes, get lots of water on your surface. Yeah, they're just really fun to have in the studio, and they're not expensive. You know, very affordable and a fun thing to have in your studio at any time. I'm going to just open these up. I wanted to show you also before we get started, painting on a block. I painted these two paintings. This was a demo that I did at our local art supply store, Opus Arts, here in Kelowna, in British Columbia. And on Magnani paper, they're on blocks. So the block means that they're glued on all sides except for one little spot. These are always open on the bottom left-hand corner of the pad. 100% cotton, 140-pound paper, 300 GSM. This is a rough grain, which is what I prefer to work on. 100% cotton always is my go-to. But I just wanted to show you these. You know, I used a lot of water. This one was painted with my Rockwell self-evolving paints. So lots and lots of water. The surface did buckle and heave slightly, but now that it's dry, it is beautiful and flat, and I won't have to I won't have to press and wait for the the paper to straighten out again. So just wanting to give you an idea of how that really does work well. If you can leave your painting on the block until it's dry, it's the way to go. I do sometimes tape the edges. I've mentioned that before. If I think I want to have, you know, a border, if I'm going to be putting a mat on it, if I'm giving that some forethought. This one had a bit of a bloom on the side, so I probably will mat it in a little bit like that. So I didn't tape it off, but certainly an option to do. So let's get started on our loose, intuitive painting with simply Hake brush. Now I haven't wetted my paints, but I will do that now. I'm using Daniel Smith paints in my palette. My go-to colors, if you've followed me at all, you'll know are Daniel Smith and Mayan Dark Blue, Undersea Green, Quinacridone Gold, Aussie Red Gold. I have a bit of Quin Rose and Quin Purple in here, and Moonglow. These are paints that I have used for as long as I've been painting. I was going to mention, and I think I've mentioned this before too, Moonglow is considered by some people a fugitive color, at least it was. I don't know that that's still the case. I haven't done the research on it. I do love the color, so I'm not going to let that stop me. I treat all of my paintings when they're finished and dried completely with several coats of, I use Kamar by Krylon, it's a varnish. And the reason I use that mainly is because when I used to teach a lot of alcohol ink, it was the product that I could use safely to set the inks without reactivating them and having them move around on my surface. So I've still got lots of that on hand, so that's what I start with. And then generally a couple of coats of a matte finish spray varnish. I find that just so easy, as long as you've got a good ventilated space to do that outside or in a great ventilated space. And they make a product that is archival and UV protectant. So I don't concern myself much about the fugitive aspect of any of the colors. Someone the other day when I was doing the demo mentioned Opera Rose had the same concern. Again, I'm sealing my work and I'm protecting them as best I can. So I'm not going to compromise my paintings for, you know, for any of those reasons. So here we go. I did show you these larger brushes, and you know what I'm going to show you. It just fits in my water vessel here, but I want to. I just want to get water on the page, and this little guy is going to cause me to have to use back and forth and more strokes than I probably need to do. So I'm just going to wet that page with this large, I don't even know if it says what size it is, but I'm sure it's probably a 3-inch, looks like 3 inches to me. And I suppose with these, I mean, they are glued and they are stitched, so I still don't want to store them this way when they're wet. So I'm going to lay it flat on the side of my table here to let it dry a bit. Probably will just brush off some of the excess water. All right, my paints are looking pretty nice and juicy. My brush is pretty wet. I don't want the brush dripping, so I'm going to dip it, saturate it, and then I'm just going to dab it on my paper towel. I keep a paper towel or sometimes even a cotton towel under my water vessels so that I can just touch my brush there just to take that excess off sometimes. So while I've been chit-chatting, the water has been settling into the paper. I just see a little bit of a puddle there. The paper does tend to want to buckle up. This bigger one, by the way, is the same paper as the smaller one I just showed you, 100% cotton, rough, and this is a 10 by 14 inch block. Magnani 1404 Toscana is the series name of this particular one. So I like that it's got a roughness to it, but the roughness is more organic looking. It doesn't look like it's come off a roll where there's a specific pattern and a grid or a mesh to it. So I'm going to, I think, get started. It looks like it's had a chance to soak in a tiny bit to the paper. This is kind of what you learn from experience, from putting water on paper and watching what happens. I can see by sitting back a little bit where the water is pooling in some spots still because of the buckling of the paper, but I can also see where it's drying in some spots. So that is going to give me a different effect on all parts of the paper because of the different level of drying. If I wanted a plain flat wash, I would ensure that my whole page was evenly saturated and it had that a very consistent glisten to it. I'm not going for that. I'm going for a natural, organic kind of feel. And with the Hake brush, I'm going for shapes and color more than detail, obviously. So let's get some of the sky happening. I often just start with my Mayan Blue. Today I'm going to start with a little bit of Quinacridone Gold, just because I think I want to put a bit of an indication of a horizon, probably about 2/3 of the way down. This one is going to be more sky oriented, perhaps, and so I want to go 2/3 down. If I wanted it to have my foreground showing more, I would make my horizon line a little higher. But today we're going to start a little bit lower, and I just touched my brush into that paint. I didn't scrub around. I just touched it enough to pick up that paint. The brush is wet, the paints are wet and juicy. That's going to allow it to adhere to the tip of my brush and just give me enough color that I can get it on the page and run it across the horizon line. And maybe we'll come up a little bit higher in one spot here. Often people will use ultramarine and a raw sienna to do skies to give it that gray, bruised kind of look. I'm just going to bring my my Quinacridone Gold just here and there up into the sky. If I was going to do a bright sunset effect, I could certainly add more colors at this point. Maybe some of the Aussie red gold, some of the Quinacridone Rose in there would be, well, let's try that. See what's on there. It's quite pinky, but it's beautiful. And we'll give that we're just going to put a tiny bit in that one spot. And then, oh, while we're at it, let's just put some Moonglow in there. Just one dab with the tip of the brush, and we'll get these colors blending. Get some interest in that horizon. And I'm just softening those off a little tiny bit. Now my sky area is still fairly damp, so I'm going to just make sure that my palette is extra juicy. I want this to be very loose and intuitive. So I've just, again, touched the tip of the Hake brush into that blue. It was wet on the surface, nice and juicy. My palette, or my paint rather, is wet. My paper is wet. We're ready to go. Another thing to think about when you are doing a sky area, I try not to start in the middle because that's going to give you a harsh block of color. So I want to start from the edge, and I've got lots of water on my brush and some pigment, and I'm just wanting to bring that across. And one more dab, just with some little extra pigment coming through, a little darker on the edges perhaps. I don't mind that. I can see here, I don't know if you can tell, where it looks like the glue on the edge of the block has come into the paper a tiny bit, and that's okay because even if I was to mount this on a block, a wood panel, I would ensure that I could trim that off. So I'm not going to give that much of a worry. One other thing that you will notice with your hockey brushes is that they often lose little hairs, and because they're so full of you know, bristles and whatever, they will pick up things that float around in the air. We have a puppy, a little Aussie Shepherd, and so she's got very fine hair, and every once in a while one just floats by, and I just saw one sort of land on my surface there. So the paper's buckled. It's heaved a tiny bit. That's okay. You'll be able to see here where this gold and this blue is coming together sort of in a beautiful flow. I'm going to watch that because there's a risk often of having a bloom show up, and in my last video I dealt with blooms and by putting in a tree, but I'm not sure I want to put a tree in that spot, so I'm going to keep an eye on that. I love that that's happening. If that will continue to do that, then I'm happy to leave that. If it's going to stop and leave a hard edge and a bloom, I'm not so sure I want to let that happen. We can see something happening here. It's almost looking like an owl's face or something showing up. So I'm going to go in with my paper towel, and I want to dampen that paper towel just a little bit. It just makes it a little softer and easier to work with. It'll still pull away color. It'll still absorb what's on the surface of the paper. But I can go in now and I can put some little shapes in. The page is still wet, the pigments are still wet, and they will continue to move. I'm barely touching the surface. If you're using a paper towel in particular, or even tissue paper, if it's got a pattern on it, if you're pressing hard, that pattern will transfer into your work, and that's sometimes not, well, always not what you really want in your sky, I don't think, unless you're trying to, you know, do a mixed media or a collage. I don't think that that's really what you want. So a little bit of shaping here. This is still looking the way I'd like it to look. I think it's quite beautiful the way that's happened. And I'm just going to make a couple of little more cloud shapes. What I try to do when I'm making clouds is to get a sense of variety and unevenness. I don't want to have polka dots running across my page necessarily. So, and I don't know about you, but when I started painting, I immediately began looking at clouds and trees and mountains and even grass differently than I had before. And I love, as I've mentioned hundreds of times, the imperfections that are there and that create and add to the beauty of what's around us. So definitely observe. I paint from memory, so this perhaps is a sky that I saw one time, a long time ago, or maybe yesterday. It's just sort of all there, right? I don't know if you can see just how gorgeous this little bit of sunrise, sunset, I'm never sure which it is either, but it's a glow that's happening in this sky, and I just think I want this cloud to be just a little bit fluffier. And as the paint, the pigment, and the water and the paper continue to evolve, move, dry, your sky just sort of starts to take shape. And I'm going to keep an eye on that. It's still fairly wet. When I sit back, I can see it's still glistening. And so I will watch it. A lot of people will use a hairdryer. I'm not a fan. It's just one more thing for me to have to add to my busy full studio. And I like to let the pigments evolve and move as they will. When you're using beautiful paper and you're using beautiful pigment, I think it's to your advantage to let those elements do what they need to do. I coax with a little bit of dabbing out, with moving things around with my brush, but that's, I don't like to interfere too much more than that. So I think that's going to dry quite nicely there without any hard edges. So I'm going to move on now, and I'm going to put just probably because I love that so much, I don't think I'm going to cover it up with mountains. I'm going to just put the indication of a meadow and maybe some small tree shapes in the background with the Hake brush. So again, in the water, dab off the excess, and I think take a little bit of the Undersea Green. I don't want it to be too strong. And having said that, I'm just going to take that off my brush because I can see now that the bottom part of my page is a little bit drier than I would like it to be. If I was to put that Undersea Green on, even though my brush was wet and I had lots of pigment on, if I was to put that on a dry surface, it's not going to have that beautiful flow. There's going to be stops and starts and blocks and things that aren't going to work, I don't think, with the rest of my painting. I've got a beautiful flow happening in the sky, so I just want to carry that on. So, whoops, that's really wet. And so I'm just get a little bit of that off of there. That's a lot of water. I'm going to do a light wash. And the paper, because it's buckling, is going to give indications of dark spots, shadows, whatever. So I'm going to work with that. And I think let's just go in with one quick dab in the Undersea Green. And I'm going to just, the indication of a slight rise, a little hillock. Is that the word for it? Hillock in the background. And now I can go in and just with the tip and the corner of my brush, with a little bit of that Undersea Green, and I'm just going to raise up a tiny bit, make a few tree shapes, a few shrubbery shapes, just with the corner. I'm going to cover this little blue dot up here, and put a few tree shapes on the edge of this one. Vary in height. We can always go in afterwards if we choose to with a smaller, finer brush. But what I want to do now is I just want to flatten out the edge of my brush. So I can do it with my finger. So it's this Ranson Hake brush has a fair bit of real estate on the end if you let it fluff out. I'm just looking for something a bit finer right now. And so I can shape that and it will give me a more pointed mark. Okay. So we're going to fill in a few, just maybe these will be treetops that are a little more rounded. And give them a little bit of, just by going back into the pigment in the palette, It's still wet. It's not as wet as it was. It's not puddled on there. So it's wet. It's sticky. It's almost like a toothpastey consistency. And that is going to give me some really thick, rich colors. So we can put a little bit of that on top. We've got the initial bit of green that I put on is diffusing. It's fading out. Watercolor, as you know, dries lighter. So now we're going to just get some texture by putting a little bit of dark in the front of those trees in the background. And then, because we have Mayan dark blue in the background and Quinacridone gold, we've also got the Quin Rose and the Moonglow just in there, just to give it that really light, slight effect. I can put those colors in here as well. It keeps it cohesive. I wouldn't want to go in and add any more colors, any different colors at this point to this painting. I like to keep everything sort of in a small group of colors. So I think I'm going to the brush is damp, just damp. And I'm going to go back to my palette and just give it another spray. And I just touched in there, but because the end of the brush is sort of scruffled open, it's going to give me more interesting dots. And these little dots now that I am putting in, dots, shapes, are going to act as shadows. So as we get closer to us, we're going to want to see some shadows underneath these trees, and also maybe up above at the tree, in the tree shapes, just to give us some indication of the under part of branches, perhaps. And then we can just add the blue. The blue is lovely for rocks, for water, even for for grasses and meadows. To put that blue, that undertone in there. This is going to dry quite light, and I'm working at keeping the bottom part sort of organic. I really don't want a straight flat wash. I've got this beautiful brush at my disposal, so I want to use it to its full advantage, and just sort of leave some texture here. And I do that just by moving my brush back and forth with a little bit of pigment on it. And these shapes, I mean, we could go in and make more tree shapes, make them closer to the front. And again, we're just dabbing with the hockey brush. Like, who knew playing hockey was so much fun, right? Don't even have to get out of your chair. It's perfect. Okay, so, oh my goodness, I have spattered. When that happens, never fear. Slight spray. I don't want my paper saturated. I just want it damp. And I'm just going to gently, very gently, just hit the surface there and pull that away. You can see where I pulled that color away now. If that fails, you can turn them into birds. All right. It's easy to sort of get, for me anyway, to get focused on a certain part of the painting and forget about the others. So that's a good reminder to take a look sometimes at what's going on. If you feel like you've gotten heavy-handed with your Hake brush, you can go in with your paper towel and pull away. It sort of gives a mistiness. We can always go back in with, I just cleaned the brush. Again, I want the end to be a bit scruffled. And there's just the slightest bit of moisture in the Quinacridone Gold. I'm going to add just a tiny bit more because I want just the hint of pigment on the tip of this brush. So I'm just going to, one dab, that's all I want. And I just want to start slow and put a tiny bit of that in. One more dab for this side of the page. You can see where the page is wet. It's picking up those beautiful pigments. And one more time, I have spattered. I think I need to move my, I don't know where the best place would be to move my palette, but I just have to be more careful, that's all. And you know, you can put birds in. I've often had people suggest to me that I put birds in. Sometimes I do, but not often. It's just kind of the way it is. And you can see here where this is diffusing. This is one of the valleys of the buckling, and so there was more moisture in there, and those colors, those pigments that I put in have kind of diffused into the background. I really love that. So what I'm going to do, I think, is just for the heck of it, I want to add just a bit more dark in there, just so that that blending of the colors in the background supports something in front of it, you know, rather than just have a little poof of colors there. And then to fine tune, I would just go in with maybe a bit of a dark. I'm just going to squish that edge of that brush closer together so I get a finer line. And yeah, just a couple more dots of dark for some interest. A little bit light, looks like some fogginess maybe happening in this forest. And basically, there is a completed painting with a Hake brush. It's up to you if you want to go further. Tendency often for me is to overwork. I think with this one, I would leave it as it is. Often I take a picture, a photograph with my camera, with my phone, and step away, go make a cup of tea or make dinner, and I don't even look at the photo until, half an hour at least goes by, maybe an hour, maybe not until later on in the evening. And then I will look at that photo with fresh eyes, and if there's anything that needs to be done, it's glaring. It shows up right away, and then I know what I can do. I can go back in, maybe I need to add another color, maybe I need to lift something out. It's always there. So take your time. You know, the painting part of it is quick, but step away, take some time away, and then come back to it if you feel you need to, and add whatever you feel is necessary. But I think I'm ready to let this paper settle down and go back to where it began in terms of flatness. And I mean, once you put a mat on it, I think I would go this way because I like that sky, and I would use a bigger mat, obviously. But that's another tip too. Have a couple of these on hand. It really helps you to, to have a look at what your work will look like, and often it just makes that painting pop. I'm happy with that. I like that there's a bit of gold coming through the trees. I love the way this sky behaved itself. It didn't cause a big bloom. So give it a try. Play some hockey. get yourself an inexpensive brush, and as long as you've got good quality paper and some lovely pigment at your disposal, let them do their jobs and enjoy the process. I'd like to thank the Process Art Discovery audience for joining me today. We played hockey. Beautiful hockey brush. Learned how that can help you to stay loose and intuitive in your painting, allowing your pigments and your paper to be part of the team and do what they need to do. If you like what you've seen, please subscribe to the channel or head on over to the members area. There's some fun things going on over there soon.